What money? My granddaughter asked when I checked whether the 1,000 I sent her every month was enough. My daughter overheard and went white as a sheet. Friends? Before I unspool the mess my daughter wove from greed and silence, tap that subscribe button and keep the volume up. You do not want to miss how a single question over Sunday peach cobbler toppled a 2-year deception faster than a Jenga tower in an earthquake. It was the first weekend of Advent, and my bungalow smelled like cinnamon and cedar. I'm Loretta Mae Williams, 69, retired postal supervisor, South Side Savannah, born and stubborn as live oak roots. My granddaughter, 18-year-old Kyra, had come over to help me address Christmas cards before heading back to her community college dorm. She'd shaved her braids into a neat fade to save on hair costs, and I'd slipped an extra 20s into her coat pocket when she wasn't looking. Old habit. At the counter, I sliced the pecan pie, glanced at Kyra's thin winter jacket, and asked, "Baby, that $1,000 I send you each month, covering tuition, inhaler refills, groceries fine?" She paused mid-lick of the spoon. "What 1,000, Grandma?" Air left the kitchen. Behind her, my daughter, Kyra's mama, Rochelle, whitened around the mouth like buttermilk turning. She knocked a mug against the sink with a clatter too sharp for a cozy Sunday. My heart pinged hard. I'd been zelling exactly $1,000 on the first of every month for 2 years, to Rochelle's account because she said Kyra's direct deposit kept glitching. The money was earmarked for course fees, asthma meds, and those surprise lab charges colleges love. That story now cracked like sugar glass. Kyra's eyes widened. "I thought you were asking about that 50 you tuck in birthday cards." She forced a laugh, but confusion knitted her brow. Rochelle stepped forward, voice syrupy. "Mama's mixing things up. You know she little forgetful lately." Forgetful? Honey, the rose garden itself couldn't grow a lie that tall. My memory is sharp enough to recite zip codes from every address route I ever walked. Kyra repeated, slower. "Grandma, you send Mom 1,000 every month?" Room temperature plummeted. I felt heat in my chest, anger or betrayal, maybe both. Rochelle's gaze darted like moth wings. She grabbed a dish towel, scrubbing a spotless counter. "Mama, it's not what—" But I was already pulling my phone, scrolling bank records. There they were, 24 identical transfers to Rochelle Williams, memo lines, Kyra meds, Kyra books, Kyra tuition. Rochelle lunged to snatch the screen. I held it high like a basketball center and said, voice steel, "Kyra, I've paid your mother 24 grand since sophomore year." Kyra's knees buckled. She gripped the counter. "I've been washing dishes in the cafeteria at 5 a.m. to afford inhalers. If you think this confrontation couldn't get messier, stay right here because the truth Rochelle finally spilled will curl your toes and have you checking every family Venmo like a detective." Silence stretched, broken only by the refrigerator hum. Rochelle dropped the towel, shoulders sagging. "Mama, my hours at the salon were cut. Then the car broke down. I kept meaning to tell you. The money helped us stay afloat." Us, meaning Rochelle and her boyfriend, who loved designer belts more than steady paychecks. Kyra's voice splintered. "So you let me skip meds, miss class because I couldn't afford the lab fee?" Tears pooled but didn't fall. My girl's tougher than drought-season soil. Rochelle stepped toward her. Kyra flinched back. I set the pie knife down, gently, because Lord knows the story didn't need another weapon, and inhaled. "We're calling Pastor Elaine and sorting a repayment plan, and first thing tomorrow, I'm taking you to the pharmacy and bursar's office myself." Rochelle choked. "Mama, please, we'll lose the condo." I met her eyes. "You should have considered that before stealing from your own child." I turned to Kyra, voice softening. "You still got finals next week. Your health comes first, schooling second, my pride last." Kyra finally sobbed then, quiet, exhausted. I drew her into my arms. She felt bird-boned, lighter than any 18-year-old should. Over her shoulder, I saw Rochelle sink to the floor back against the fridge, sobbing too late. Friends, if you think family betrayal ends with tears on linoleum, buckle up. A bank manager uncovers forged signatures, a surprise ally surfaces from the IRS, and Rochelle learns what restitution tastes like when the court calls it fraud. Hit that bell, because justice cooks hotter than any holiday oven, and we're just preheating. The sunlight that crept through my kitchen blinds Monday morning felt harsher than any church revival spotlight. I'd slept maybe 2 hours, mapping battle plans while the coffee dripped like a metronome. By 8:30, Kyra and I stood in line at Magnolia Community Bank, her medical records in a manila folder, my transfer receipts clipped with a binder that bit like cold truth. Mr. Patel, a soft-spoken branch manager who'd cashed my postal checks for decades, ushered us into his glass cubicle. Kyra perched on the chair's edge, inhaler within reach. I produced the ledger of $24,000. I need a stop payment on every recurring transfer and a formal inquiry into misuse of funds. I said. Patel skimmed the pages, his usually warm eyes sharpening. These memos state medical necessity, he murmured. If funds were diverted, it could constitute wire fraud. He tapped the screen, and here, 2 withdrawals, same-day funds arrived to an online boutique and a casino app. Kyra's fingers tightened on her folder. Patel printed the flagged transactions, stamped them with his signature, then excused himself to consult compliance. 10 minutes later, he returned with Miss Green, a bank investigator. She explained that forging or falsifying medical purpose on transfers could invoke both state fraud statutes and IRS penalties for misreported dependency care. Victim services will contact you, she assured Kyra. Tears rimmed my granddaughter's lashes, but she held steady. We left with a freeze on Rochelle's account, pending review. Outside, Kyra exhaled a shaky laugh. Grandma, the campus clinic, charges $40 for a rescue inhaler with prescription. I skip doses to make one last a month. My gut twisted. Never again, baby. Our next stop, Savannah Technical College bursar Miss Owens, the bursar clerk, clicked through Kyra's tuition profile. 2 lab fee holds and a delinquent health insurance payment glowed red. Your mother assured us these invoices were in process through a family fund, she said, frowning. I paid the $9.12 the balance on the spot, the swipe of my debit card echoing like a gavel. Back home, Rochelle's car sat in my driveway, dented fender glinting. She waited on the porch, mascara smudged. I parked and stepped out. Kyra stayed in the car. Doors locked. Rochelle rushed toward me, but I raised a hand. Bank froze your account, I said. They'll call about documentation. Her shoulders sagged. Mama, I'll lose everything. The condo, the car note. You chose gambling over honesty, I replied. Consequences are part of the wager. That evening, Pastor Elaine arrived. Rochelle confessed amid sobs, blaming anxiety, underemployment, temptation. Pastor listened, then spread repayment worksheets. Rochelle must draft a budget, enroll in Gamblers Anonymous, and commit to restitution. $400 monthly to Kyra's new education fund held in a trust I would oversee. Rochelle nodded, hollow-eyed. Tuesday brought a surprise call from Miss Rivera at the IRS Taxpayer Advocate Service. She'd seen the bank's preliminary fraud flag and offered to expedite an identity theft case because Rochelle had filed Kyra as a dependent while pocketing funds labeled medical. If reimbursements don't reconcile, your daughter faces penalties, Rivera warned. She guided Kyra and me through Form SOPU 39, identity theft affidavits, another stitch in our safety net. By Friday, Rochelle's salon employer confirmed she'd taken pay advances against fictitious commissions. Termination was swift. She texted me at midnight. I'm scared I'll go to jail, I replied. Work with the advocate, stick to restitution. Your fear won't heal Kyra. Action will. Saturday. Kyra and I visited a lawyer, Miss Dorsey, who specialized in educational trusts. Dorsey drafted documents naming Kyra sole beneficiary, me trustee, and prohibiting loans against principal. We seeded it with the first restitution payment and my own match. Kyra hugged me, tears spotting my blouse. Grandma, I can breathe. I thought she meant relief, but realized she also meant oxygen, medicine now secured. That night, we held a family meeting. Kyra, me, Pastor Elaine, and Rochelle by video, tears streaking the screen. Pastor laid out the covenant. GA meetings thrice weekly, restitution auto draft, therapy sessions bi-weekly. One violation triggers legal motion. Rochelle whispered acceptance. After the call, Kyra asked, "Do second chances always hurt this much?" I answered, "They hurt when they're real. Fake forgiveness feels good fast but rots slow." Friends, some stories simmer longer than cobbler in a slow oven. In the next, restitution checks bounce. Rochelle faces grand theft charges, and Kyra learns empowerment beats pity when she opens her own tutoring business on campus. Hit that bell, because the batter's thick, and justice is still rising. Restitution Day arrived with a dusty sunrise, the kind that paints the Savannah River copper but offers no warmth. Kyra and I sat at the kitchen table, laptop open to her new education trust account. Rochelle's first $400 payment should have landed at 6 a.m., automatic draft non-negotiable. The clock clicked past 6:05. Nothing. At 6:10, a red banner flashed. Deposit returned. Insufficient funds. Kyra's shoulders sagged, a tired curve I'd prayed not to see again. I called Rochelle. Straight to voicemail. Text message. Transfer failed. Explain. Blue check marks appeared. No reply. I drove to her condo. Vacant lockbox on the door. For lease sign in the yard. Neighbors said movers hauled furniture out 2 nights prior. On the curb lay a trash bag stuffed with salon uniforms and empty wine bottles. Pastor Elaine answered my urgent call from a church workshop. Rochelle missed 2 GA meetings this week, she said. Last I heard, she was talking about a quick fix at Grayton Casino. My stomach dropped. A 2-hour drive. Payday-style slot hall notorious for bending ID rules. Detective Nguyen from the Financial Crimes Unit returned my earlier message. The IRS advocate had flagged Rochelle's amended return for false medical deductions. A bench warrant could follow if she ignored notices. Nguyen asked if I knew her location. I relayed Pastor Elaine's tip. Nguyen promised to alert Highway Patrol. Back home, Kyra stared at her inhaler receipt on the fridge. Paid, but barely. Grandma, I can't chase her, she whispered. I need to chase my grades. Resolve straightened her spine. She unzipped her backpack, pulled out a hand-drawn flyer. STEM SOS. Tutoring, physics, algebra, chem a 20-hour. She'd booked a study room on campus that evening, determined to turn her mastery into cash. My heart thumped pride and grief in equal measure. By noon, Nguyen called again. Rochelle's car had been spotted by license plate reader entering Grayton County. Patrol units searched parking lots. A second call followed. Casino security footage caught her feeding $100 bills into a video poker machine. Eyes glassy, still wearing a hospital scrub top from a temp job she'd quit after 2 shifts. When officers approached, she bolted, slipping in spilled beer, breaking a heel. Arrested on outstanding fraud warrant and new misdemeanor trespass for refusing to leave the gaming floor. That evening, Kyra's first tutoring session filled all 6 seats. She used a whiteboard I bought at a yard sale and the gummy bear reward system Dolores invented. Laughter floated through the door each time a student solved a quadratic. Afterward, she counted $120 and said, "Grandma, that was the easiest breath of the week." We drove home under streetlights, and I realized she no longer looked bird-boned. Purpose was adding weight. Next morning, Rochelle appeared in magistrate court via video, orange jumpsuit clashing with her sallow cheeks. Judge Harmon read charges: grand larceny by deception, wire fraud under $25,000, tax fraud, probation violation for skipped rehabilitation. Bail set at $20,000 cash. Denied when she confessed funds were gone. Court appointed a public defender. Her eyes searched the tiny courtroom for family. I was there, but she couldn't see me behind glass. I whispered a prayer anyway. Nguyen pulled me aside. "We uncovered 2 payday loan accounts opened in your name," he said. "Electronic signature looks forged." Shock, then anger. I filed identity theft affidavits on the spot. Credit freeze engaged by afternoon. Kyra met me at Magnolia Cafe. She slid a folded sheet across the table. Spreadsheet of projected tutoring income. 15 students by mid-semester equals inhalers, meal plan, book rentals. "I'm building my own railings," she said. I brushed a tear away before it salted my coffee. Crisis shipping bunny kits stitched by student volunteers funded Kyra's second inhaler stash. Ella, one of her 2 T's, gifted a blue heart scrunchie. Campus counselor asked Kyra to host a resilience workshop. She accepted, cheeks flushing. The week ended with Rochelle's first jail call. Crackly connection. She sobbed apologies, begged for bail. I told her bail money now lived in classroom equations and trust fund locks. She cursed, then cried softer, whispering she was sick and cold. I replied, "Rehab and honesty are blankets. Wrap yourself." After hanging up, I felt guilt nip but not bite. Some cuts need bandages, others need stitches in time. Friends, the oven's heat just rose. Next, Rochelle's plea deal demands restitution through prison work release. Kyra's tutoring business faces sabotage from jealous classmates, and IRS refunds transform into scholarship seeds. Stay tuned. Justice might be slow cooked, but its aroma fills every room. The first letter from Rochelle arrived on county jail stationery, edges smudged where tears or sweat had blurred the ink. She wrote that the fluorescent lights never dimmed, that every clang of the meal cart echoed like a slot payout she'd chased, and that the Gambler's Anonymous workbook felt heavier than her bunkmate's snoring. At the bottom, she asked if Kyra could visit. I folded the paper once, twice, slipped it into the cedar chest where Dolores's bracelet rested, and left it there. Answers could wait until restitution began to breathe. 2 weeks later, Ada Hale called. Rochelle's public defender had negotiated a plea: 18 months in the Women's Work Release Center plus 5 years probation. Restitution of $24,000 to Kyra's trust would be deducted from her wages, 50% of every paycheck from the prison's garment factory. A counseling mandate and an IRS repayment plan rounded out the deal. Hale asked if we wished to oppose. Kyra and I agreed. Accountability tied to labor and therapy beat idle cell time. We signed victim impact acknowledgement, sealing the plea before trial. News of Rochelle's sentence trickled through Savannah tech like cafeteria steam. Most people offered hushed sympathy, but one student, Brett Turner, who'd failed algebra twice, snickered loud enough in Kyra's corridor. "Guess tutoring's easy when Grandma bankrolls your pity party." Kyra shrugged it off, but flyers for STEM SOS vanished overnight from the bulletin board, torn edges fluttering by the snack machine. The next evening, a fake Instagram account posted doctored screenshots implying Kyra charged $50 to write essays. Detective Nguyen traced the IP to the engineering computer lab. Brett's login, .campus discipline landed him on academic probation, yet the sting lingered in Kyra's posture like an unbandaged bruise. Mid-semester, the IRS advocate phoned. Identity theft investigation ruled in Kyra's favor. Her fraudulent dependency claims were reversed, triggering a $3,200 federal refund and a $1,200 state credit applied to her tuition. When I told her, she sank into a chair, laughter breaking free like water from rusted pipes. We decided to seed a microgrant. Any tutoring student who raised a failing grade to a B could earn a $100 book voucher. Kyra designed certificates with blue heart seals and left Dolores' name at the bottom as silent co-signer. Work release orientation day arrived crisp and bright. Rochelle shuffled into the visitation room wearing khaki scrubs 2 sizes too big, hair in a limp ponytail. Plexiglass divided us, phones crackling. She looked 45 instead of 38. "Mom, they pay 35 cents a shirt," she blurted. "It'll take years." I replied, "Kyra will measure time and breath, not dollars." She whispered she'd attended 3 GA sessions, recited step 1 by heart, and asked if Kyra would ever forgive her. I said forgiveness is a staircase we climb with receipts, not wishes. Her tears slid slow. I tried to feel compassion and manage something close. That night, Kyra led her resilience workshop. 20 students crowded the library's makerspace. She opened by writing resilience. Pressure. Reflection on the whiteboard then told them about inhalers rationed, tuition holds, and a grandmother who stood like a live oak railing. She never mentioned Rochelle's name, only someone who let fear pick locks inside their honesty. During Q&A, Brett lingered at the back, eyes down. Afterward, he approached, mumbling an apology, offering to help assemble bunny kits for service hours. Kyra accepted with a handshake, and I swore Dolores' spirit high-fived the ceiling tiles. Spring break bloomed with azaleas the color of flamingo feathers. Kyra chose to teach a free crash course in trigonometry rather than hit the beach. On the final day, she distributed the first microgrants, 5 vouchers in envelopes stamped with blue hearts. Ella, the biomedical major, hugged Kyra so hard both inhalers in Kyra's bag clinked. Photographs of the moment reached Sprout Beam, who requested permission to air the story as a Courage Corner special. Royalty proceeds, small but real, would roll into the grant pool. A month later, a thin envelope arrived from the Work Release Center. Rochelle's first wage statement, 60 bowed, 80 gross, $33.90 applied to restitution. A second sheet carried her shaky cursive, sewing buttons all day, wrists hurt, but my counselor says pain can stitch humility. I mailed you 1 blue heart patch I made from spare fabric. Give it to Kyra if she wants. Enclosed lay a frayed cotton heart, edges uneven, color sky blue. Kyra pinned it to her backpack without a word. On a breezy May afternoon, we visited the community garden behind the courthouse, where volunteers invite families of offenders to plant hope instead of shame. Kyra chose a tomato seedling, tucked it into soil, and whispered, "Grow tall even with broken roots." I pressed my palms into the earth beside hers, feeling the loam accept our shared vow. Friends, batter has risen, crust begins to brown. Next, Rochelle's parole board reviews her progress, Kyra's microgrant spawns a campus help ladder, and the tomato plant bears fruit. Proof seeds can thrive in soil watered by accountability. Keep your timers set. Justice isn't fully baked yet, but the aroma says we're close. The tomato plant behind the courthouse grew faster than any of us expected, coiling up its twine stake like a child determined to reach the cookie jar. By late June, plump green globes dangled under its leaves, and Kyra declared every centimeter of vine a reminder that restitution, like botany, demands patience and sunshine in equal measure. We photographed the first blush of red on a Saturday morning before heading to the Work Release Center for Rochelle's initial parole progress conference. Inside a cinder block hearing room lined with posters about vocational readiness, Rochelle sat between a case manager and a GA sponsor. Her khaki scrubs now fit. She'd lost the casino weight sewing 300 shirts a week. She clutched her completion certificate for Phase 1 financial literacy and a log showing 30 consecutive GA meetings. The board chair, a graying woman named Ms. Dillard, asked about relapse triggers. Rochelle answered, voice steady, that she stitched a blue heart onto her pocket to remind her of Kyra's trust fund every time greed or despair pricked. Ms. Dillard nodded, penciled a note. Recommend advancement to community detail crew pending continued restitution compliance, she said. Approval meant $50 an hour instead of 70 cents. Progress, but still slow quarters rolling uphill. That same week, Kyra's micro-grant program morphed into something bigger. After one of her STEM SOS students used voucher money to pay off a utility bill instead of buying books, Kyra redesigned the model. She called the new initiative Help Ladder. Students who received tutoring and raised a grade pledged 4 volunteer hours tutoring someone else, and half their voucher went into a revolving emergency fund managed by the campus social work office. First ladder cycle. 12 tutors climbed, 18 tutees followed, and $600 pooled for emergencies. The dean sent a congratulatory email praising Kyra for peer-led scaffolding. Kyra printed and taped it above her dorm desk next to a photo of Dolores. Not everyone cheered. One adjunct grumbled the ladder encouraged grade inflation, and a student newspaper columnist mocked the Blue Heart branding as trauma core philanthropy. Kyra chuckled. If haters learn algebra while trolling, that's still a win. She invited the columnist to observe a session. He attended, solved for X alongside freshmen, and published an apology the next week. July brought Georgia heat that spooned itself over the city like thick gravy. My porch fans battled humidity as I balanced scholarship ledgers. A certified envelope arrived from the IRS. Kyra's identity theft refund adjustment had triggered an automatic matching grant from a little-known STEM empowerment fund, the Dell Corbin Legacy Grant, $5 million, earmarked for community college women in science. The grant required a public presentation. Kyra proposed a campus fair where ladder tutors would demo simple physics experiments. Egg drops, balloon-propelled cars, resonance bowls singing under sweaty summer sun. 3 days later, we stood beside folding tables in the quad. Sprout beam cameras rolled. Lena, visiting for the weekend, filmed a Courage Corner snippet. Rochelle's GA sponsor wheeled in boxes of prison-made scrubs for donation, each pocket stitched with a blue heart. Students inched closer, curious. Kyra kicked off with a demonstration, dropping 2 tomatoes, one cradled in a mini parachute made of scrap fabric from the work release factory, one without. The unprotected fruit burst, the other bounced unharmed. She raised it high and said, "Support systems aren't shortcuts, they're parachutes." Applause rippled. The dean, eyes misty, announced permanent funding for Help Ladder via the Corbin Grant and University matching dollars. Camera flashes captured Kyra's grin, summer sweat sparkling on her brow like dew on fresh produce. Meanwhile, Rochelle's community detail crew assigned her to City Park cleanup, 20 hours a week under sun-bleached vests. On break, she asked the supervisor for spare seeds, then mailed me a packet labeled Roma VF. Her letter read, "Plant. Alongside the first vine, double fruit by harvest, half proceeds to Help Ladder. I planted them. Redemption may never cancel damage, but it can feed futures. Late August, the original tomato plant bore enough ripe globes to fill a church casserole dish. We harvested at dawn, dew cooling our ankles. Kyra arranged the tomatoes into a blue heart on a tray for a campus potluck. Under the cafeteria's fluorescent glare, she sliced samples, sprinkling salt, offering bites to whoever passed. Even Brett, the former detractor, accepted a wedge, declared it pretty legit, then spent the afternoon adjusting equations on a tutoring worksheet with Kyra. That evening, we sat on my porch, gnats swirling but leaving us mostly in peace thanks to citronella candles. Kyra rested her head on my shoulder. "Grandma," she sighed, "I can finally breathe without counting puffs." My eyes blurred, but I managed. "Keep planting ladders, baby." Hurricane Cora crawled toward the Georgia coast with the slow arrogance of a spoiled child, projected landfall categories wobbling between 2 and 3. Savannah Tech canceled classes, city sirens wailed evacuation zones. Kyra and I chose to shelter in place. My bungalow sits on a rare ridge and boasts hurricane shutters installed back when I still knew postal routes by heart. We lashed the porch railings, secured the tomato vines with extra twine, and prayed the blue hearts would hold. Mid-preparations, an email from the college's compliance office sliced through the weather alerts. Internal audit triggered. Help ladder grant expenditures frozen pending review of procurement procedures. Apparently, an anonymous complaint accused Kyra of funneling voucher money to preferred vendors. Translation: buying books from the privately owned campus store instead of the online co-op. My jaw clenched. I smelled Brett's old resentment, but proof would wait until storms quieted. Meanwhile, Rochelle's case manager phoned. Work-release dorms were evacuating inland. Rochelle petitioned for transfer to a halfway house in Savannah post-storm. The parole board would convene virtually if internet held. Could Kyra or I speak? Kyra weighed the request. Inhaler whistle audible. Finally, "Grandma, I'll tell them truth, not charity." We scheduled testimony for 8 a.m., the day after landfall. Cora arrived that night, screaming through oak limbs, rattling shutters like pennies in a jar. Power flickered out at 11:07 p.m. We lit candles that hissed in drafts. Sometime after midnight, a crash shook the house. Morning's gray light revealed the giant pecan in Mrs. Willis's yard toppled. Its branches crushed our shared fence and flattened the tomato garden under a tangle of leaves. Green fruit split and bleeding on wet soil. Kyra pressed a knuckle to her lips but didn't cry. "We can start seeds indoors," she said, voice small. But determination glinted. With cell towers groaning, we joined the virtual parole hearing using my phone's hotspot. Rochelle appeared on screen from an evacuation shelter, hair tucked under a paper cap. The board chair asked Kyra to speak. She straightened. "My mother committed fraud that risked my health," she began, even-toned. "But she's taken every step the court set. If transition to a halfway house gets her closer to stable work and bigger restitution payments, I'm for it. If she slips, I'll report." Rochelle's eyes shimmered. I added that accountability without opportunity is a storm with no shelter. The board granted transfer conditional on continued GA attendance and curfew. News of the garden loss reached social media after Lena posted a photo. Blue heart tomatoes crushed under branches, comments flooded, students offered to replant once soil dried. Sprout Beam viewers mailed seed packets. Even the columnist who'd mocked Trauma Corps asked where to donate steaks, but the audit loomed. Kyra gathered receipts. Every book voucher, every ledger entry. We discovered the complaint source. Yes, Brett, but audit team also flagged a legitimate issue. The bookstore is partially owned by the college foundation, so purchases technically cycled grant money back to the institution, violating circular fund rules. Penalty could require refunding 1,200 and suspending operations. Storm cleanup blurred hours, but Kyra drafted an appeal. She proposed issuing future vouchers as prepaid Visa cards limited to educational merchants and offered to fundraise the Jenny dealer $200 through an emergency bake sale plus tutoring marathon. The audit panel convened in a dim generator-lit conference room. Kyra presented in rubber boots, data projected onto plywood because the smartboard died in the storm. Her plan impressed them. Suspension lifted, provided controls implemented, and deficiency repaid within 30 days. Back on campus, volunteers hauled debris from the garden. Rochelle, fresh from halfway house intake, arrived in borrowed jeans carrying seed trays. Some students stiffened at her approach. Kyra introduced her. "This is my mom. She's here on restitution duty." Rochelle knelt beside the stump, palms darkening with mud, sowing Roma seeds she'd mailed. No speeches, just shovels and rain-soft soil. That evening, help ladder tutors stacked cupcakes, coffee, and calculus guides in the library. Brett worked the cash box, his probationary community service. Students solved problems until dawn. Donations and session fees hit Jalo 310. Enough to cover the audit penalty and buy replacement fencing. Kyra collapsed into a beanbag at sunrise, frosting on her cheek like war paint. "Grandma, storms prune dead wood," she murmured. 3 weeks later, little green sprouts poked through rebuilt beds. Audit closed with commendation for student-led corrective excellence. Rochelle's first halfway house paycheck, $110 after taxes, arrived, half deposited automatically into Kyra's trust. She enclosed a note. "Plant me a tomato when I come home." Kyra smiled and tucked it into her ledger. Autumn tiptoed into Savannah with maple leaf confetti and air, cool enough that Kyra's inhaler stayed forgotten at the bottom of her backpack. The rebuilt garden, now 3 beds wide, glowed with ripening Roma clusters, basil hedges, and a single blue-painted stake marking Rochelle's row. Each Saturday, halfway house van dropped her off for 4 supervised hours. She worked silent, steady, the rhythm of trowel and soil replacing casino lights. Kyra tracked each visit in her help ladder ledger. Every 30 days of labor shaved $50 off audit debt. September's big news came in an email from Georgia's technical college system. They'd reviewed help ladder documentation and wanted to pilot it on 5 campuses. No money yet, just permission and network reach. Kyra's eyes grew round as full moons. She asked if a community college sophomore could handle statewide oversight. I reminded her the word sophomore translates to wise fool, a perfect balance for starting revolutions. We drafted a toolkit, downloadable tutor contracts, QR-coded voucher templates, and blue heart branding guidelines. Simple rule, heart must sit above the fold because courage leads. Sprout Beam offered their studio for a launch webinar. Lena hosted, wearing her Courage Corner cardigan and explaining voucher workflows to faculty sponsors across the state. Comments popped like kettle corn. Brilliant. "How do we fund the ladder?" Producer texted me, "Kid just did a TED Talk at 10. I replied with a thumbs up emoji. Words felt too small, but expansion triggered new scrutiny. The state comptroller required a fiscal agent of record. I volunteered, leveraging decades of postal audits to navigate paperwork labyrinths. Brett, now Kyra's enthusiastic co-facilitator, built a Google Sheets dashboard that projected tutor hours against voucher burn rates. The system chugged until an unexpected spike. Central Piedmont College requested 200 vouchers after a calculus professor went on leave mid-semester. Funding gap, 3,400. Kyra refused a pause rollout. She proposed a solve-a-thon. Tutors statewide would log into a shared Zoom, solving live homework questions for donation pledges. Sponsorship tiers offered prizes, personalized study guides, campus shout-outs, handmade Blue Heart scrunchies. Rochelle, hearing the plan, asked if prison-made scrubs could be embroidered with the logo. Halfway House supervisor approved as vocational credit. 40 units sold in 2 days. Solve-a-thon night crackle with energy, 90 tutors in split screen, students firing algebra grenades. Donor ticker climbed, $100, then $2,700, then a surprise $5,000 from the Del Corbin Legacy Board. Matching every pledge, goal met plus cushion. Kyra wiped happy tears. Brett fist bumped his webcam. I exhaled gratitude that felt like warm bread. Amid momentum, Rochelle's parole hearing loomed. Her counselor submitted glowing reports. 0 GA absences, punctual restitution, leadership in sewing room. Still, opposition letters surfaced. 2 salon clients claimed unpaid extensions, and Grayton Casino's lawyers cited trespass precedent to argue early parole would weaken deterrence. Rochelle asked Kyra to speak on her behalf again. Kyra deliberated for days. She finally drafted a statement. My mother wounded trust but is grafting herself back. Trees pruned by storms bear sweeter fruit. Let her outside to harvest with us. On hearing day, we sat in a chilly chamber, parole board streaming via projector. Rochelle recited her amends list, eyes clearer than I remembered from before the spiral. Kyra read her statement, voice shaking only at the word harvest. Board recessed for 15 minutes that felt like 15 seasons. Verdict. Parole granted effective Thanksgiving week, conditional on continued restitution, and mandatory evening GA sessions. Celebration was brief. A fresh email awaited. State agriculture inspectors flagged our garden for unlicensed produce distribution because we donated tomatoes to the campus pantry. A possible $500 of fine. Bureaucracy loves whack-a-mole. Kyra groaned, then marched into the administration office, returning with a stack of volunteer garden exemption forms. Another worksheet, she sighed, already filling blanks. October's close brought the first statewide help ladder metrics. 890 tutoring hours logged, 312 grade improvements, 460 emergency fund balance. Kyra penned a newsletter, quoting Dolores, equations are promises, both balance when solved. Rochelle clipped the newsletter beside her bunk, inmates requesting copies for GED prep. One breezy Sunday, we gathered in the garden for a soft launch harvest feast. Students, tutors, parole officers, even Miss Dillard carried picnic dishes. Lena live-streamed as Kyra plucked the first ripe tomato from Rochelle's row and sliced it onto crusty bread. Rochelle, wearing her blue-stitch scrub top, whispered grace. May restitution taste like this, juicy, seedy, worth the mess. We bit into sandwiches, juice dripping, laughter rising like hymn refrains. Storm shutters still hung on my bungalow, but in that moment they felt like open doors. The state funding vote landed on the first chilly Monday of November, inside a marble echo committee room where portraits of past legislators stared down like stern ancestors. Kyra and I sat shoulder to shoulder. She clutched a thumb drive holding Help Ladder's latest data. Rochelle's freshly printed parole certificate tucked in her notebook. 40 minutes of presentations preceded us. Parking lot repaving, drone fleet pilot, a heated dispute over sorority license plates. Then Chairwoman Alvarez called, Education Item 7C, peer tutoring and emergency aid initiative. Kyra stood, palms visibly trembling, and plugged in the drive. Slide 1. A map studded with blue hearts across Georgia's campuses. Slide 2. Before and after grade distributions. Slide 3. A pie chart of emergency fund disbursements. 42% medical, 28% housing utilities, 30% academic fees. She spoke of ladders and parachutes, quoted Dolores, even referenced the tomato plant now immortalized on Sprout Beam. Questions came. Liability coverage, we partnered with the college system's umbrella policy, fiscal controls. Vouchers switched to merchant-restricted cards. Chairwoman Alvarez leaned in. What if state appropriations shrink? Kyra answered, seeds sprout in every soil. Help ladder scales down by tutor hours, not by hope. A hush, then motion to approve. 5 committee members raised hands, 2 abstained, gavel. Struck $250 the Thousand pilot grant for 2 years, renewable upon audit. Kyra's breath left in a whoosh. Outside, she hugged Brett, now co-director, tears turning to fog. We just bought thousands of parachutes, she whispered. Thanksgiving week arrived wrapped in tart air smelling of chimney smoke. Rochelle stepped off the halfway house van clutching a clear plastic tote, 2 changes of clothes, GA workbook, and seeds labeled Kentucky Wonder Beans. She wore borrowed church slacks, her scrub top folded neat. Kyra met her at the garden gate. They exchanged an awkward half hug before turning soil for winter greens. That night, Rochelle sat at my table, hands wrapped around cider. Silence thickened until Kyra slid over a folded paper. The latest restitution statement, 1,643 paid, interest forgiven if monthly targets met. Rochelle traced the numbers, nodded, tears dropping into her mug. Black Friday dawned, but instead of malls, we drove to Atlanta for Sprout Beam's National Summit. Lena filmed behind-the-scenes B-roll, Kyra rehearsing on a circular stage, Rochelle nervously adjusting the blue heart brooch she'd sewn from scrap. The segment aired live. Lena interviewed Kyra about scaling Help Ladder beyond Georgia. Kyra surprised everyone by inviting Rochelle on stage. She introduced her mother not as cautionary tale, but as our first success metric, proof restitution fuels progress. Rochelle, voice trembling, told millions she once gambled away trust, but now stitched uniforms that help pay for textbooks. Social feeds exploded. Blue hearts beat redemptive stories, one tweet read. National attention brought fresh challenges. An edtech startup offered to platformize Help Ladder for a 30% admin fee and mandatory data harvesting. Kyra politely declined, citing transparency. They hinted at lawsuits over code similarities. Brett produced time-stamped Git commits, proving originality. ADA Hale, now friendly advisor, offered pro bono defense if needed, railings held. Christmas Eve, we gathered under porch string lights, Rochelle's first holiday free in 2 years. She brought a casserole of garlicky green beans grown from her seeds. Kyra presented a framed certificate naming Rochelle a volunteer garden coordinator. Over dessert, Marcus read the governor's proclamation. January 2nd, officially designated Blue Heart Day statewide, promoting peer support and restitution awareness. Cheers rose. Lena captured the moment for her channel, confetti of likes bursting within seconds. Later, Rochelle and I stood by the resurrected tomato vines, winter cover crop sprouting green hope. Mama, she said, I thought prison bars would define me forever. Turns out bars can be rungs. I pressed a hand to her shoulder. Keep climbing. Railings you broke, you're now helping reinforce. New Year's morning, Kyra opened her inbox to find emails from out-of-state colleges requesting toolkits. Florida, Illinois, even Alaska. She forwarded them to the committee. Subject line, "Our bridge is extending. We toasted with sparkling cider, porch rail cool beneath our elbows, horizon stretching wide as Savannah marsh. Friends, we reached the summit Dolores once sketched in margin notes, a network where math solves hunger, where restitution stitches pockets instead of holes, where storms prune but seedlings surge. If your family faces fractured trust, remember the equation Kyra taught. Pressure plus reflection equals resilience. Keep your railings sanded, your heart sky blue, and your ladders ready. Someone's already climbing behind you."